renowned sociologist and best-selling author Brene Brown describes midlife not as a crisis, but rather an unraveling. It's a time, she says, when the universe grabs your shoulders and says to you, stop around, use the gifts you were given. I really can relate to that statement. And so I'd like to talk about midlife and what midlife means for you. What were some of the unraveling that happened in your midlife? Midlife is loosely described as the period between 45 years of age and 65. And a lot can happen in those 20 years. By the time you hit midlife, a lot has already happened. Very likely, for most people, they might be on their second or third marriages, or they might be single after 2 marriages. So by the time you hit midlife, you've already experienced tremendous losses. Maybe the loss not only of relationships that matter to you at one point, but maybe the loss as well of your parents. Maybe the loss in the sense of changing in your identity from being a parent and now an empty nester. So midlife to me is a period of change, tremendous changes. And I'd like to delve into what some of these changes are for you and some of the ramifications those changes brought for you and what emerged from within while you were going through some of those changes. So you might be right smack in the middle of midlife reevaluating things. And I like how Brene Brown says it's not a crisis, but rather an unraveling. I think midlife is a time when midlife is a time when you stop listening to what you've been told you need to do, you should do, you have to do. And you start thinking, now what do I want to do? Midlife is a time you start really listening to yourself. That's what I believe. Midlife is a time when I think it's a time you start living for yourself as well. You spent a large portion of your life living for your family, for your partner, for your children. So midlife is a time where you start evaluating, now what do I want for myself? What would I like to see happen in midlife? And in her statement, it's when the universe grabs you on your shoulder and says, stop wasting time. Use the gifts you were given. I think midlife is a time we start looking at that more seriously. What would I be doing differently? Because by the time you hit midlife, you're thinking, okay, you've already lived halfway through your life. There's a high likelihood you have. And then now you're thinking, okay, a lot of time has passed by. What would I like to be doing differently? Or what would I like to do that maybe I had not done? What would I like to do that maybe I had not done because I've been listening to everyone else? And what does your inner being want for you? Anyway, so I'd like to start talking about midlife a little more, because it's I think so much of media is on the needs of millennials and young people, because they've really taken on to social media in a big way. But what about women in midlife? So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about it. What are some of the challenges women in midlife face? What would you like to see happen in the rest of your life now that you've lived half of it through? I'm Jennifer Thompson, and I'd like to hear from you.